So I think like part of this is what rituals does your company follow and how do you bring those down to the legal team level? Like ultimately at the end of the day, the reporting structures, and by that, are you on OKRs? Are you doing monthly like functional updates? Is there a, every week newsletter you're expected to send as a legal department? Figuring out those rituals at the top and then flowing them through your team. I try to make sure that we do regular team meetings. I do one-on-ones, I do skip level one-on-ones, all of the classic just team management. But when it comes to legal management, if people want to grow in their career, they're always going to be taking on new areas that they've never done before. Maybe I haven't done it before either. So figuring out what those new areas are and partnering maybe more closely on those than the repeat areas where you feel really confident, they feel really confident. And delegation and monitoring and autonomy is not a one size fits all, even for the person. It might be based on the topic that they're working on today. Hey, this one we're both going to go really deep on, or this area you're absolutely flying on your own and we feel great about it.
Mike, what about you? And one thing I'd be curious to dial in on is this aspect of giving negative feedback. So I'd be curious to hear about how you approach those scenarios where maybe you have someone on your team that's making mistakes or potentially underperforming. How do you address those issues internally?
Yeah, we do have one-on-ones, and in one-on-ones, those are weekly meetings, and they're driven by the direct report, right? This is their time to either say what's bothering them, what's working, what do they want to do in their career. But what's important for me is that this is the way I operate. But during that time, as we're talking about career advancement and what's worrying, that to me is actually not the time to do if I'm considering constructive feedback. If I have something, a big topic to talk about, I don't want to rain on that parade. I will schedule a second thing. And if it needs to be addressed or if there's a broader issue, I do want to separate them because I personally have never been the type of manager that wants to do the layered cake thing. Like, oh, you're doing great, but have a great day, right? You're like layering it to hide the bad news. No, let's talk about all the things that are working here. Let's talk about everything that you want to do here. And then let's separately address the negative things. Let's resolve that issue and then we can move on. And that way it doesn't feel like it was lost in this positive, negative atmosphere. It was a negative atmosphere. And we talked through it. It was very direct because because we're operating in this remote first environment, it is a little bit awkward sometimes to deliver it through a screen. Whereas maybe in a room, you would have been able to pick up on a little bit social cues. You're waiting for the right time if you're around them. In the social world, you're scheduling the negative feedback, right? And that feels a little bit different. It may, you're thinking about it all day. They're thinking about it all day. You know it. So I separate it early morning. Let's just get through it. We talk about it, continue the day. That's the way I've done it, which has had some success. And I've done a 360 feedback from my team, and they seem to like the way that operates.
Yeah, I love that. Clear is kind when it comes to feedback. And it's so hard because it's the company you're at really dictates the feedback culture. Are people open to giving and receiving feedback frequently in a non-personal manner? But really, let's get better. Let's root cause problem solve. Let's do a post-mortem. I find that even like cross-functional partners are the hardest to give feedback to. Hey, on this project, and seems like you gave us the specifications like the day before you needed it. How do we fix this in the future? But really focusing on the issue rather than the person. But I think the degree of feedback too on your legal team is also, is it really serious? Is it a small pointer? Personally, stay away from Slack or Microsoft Teams chats when it comes to feedback. Number
Right.
one, that could just like feedback water balloons coming at you at random. And people want to hear feedback when they're ready to hear it. Otherwise, it's absolutely useless. And so I find also just, hey, is there a time next week we can talk about some feedback or talk about some feedback about how this project went? Because then it really shifts people's mindset into, oh, I'm in the driver's seat here. I'm going to tell you when works for me. And so when I show up to that feedback meeting, I'm going to be ready for it and in the right headspace.